The Story of Celest by Ana Clara Sofronie and Călin Dan Moroșan. Chapter 1, read by Alexandra Bumbu. All rights reserved. There have been many Big Bangs, but the very first one was when Celeste was born. His parents vanished in the awesome explosion, and he was left alone in space. He was different from anything else that had been discovered in the universe. Celeste did not have any particular shape. He could take on any form that he wanted. He could stretch himself over many universes. He could even compress himself to fit into the smallest atom. He could take on any color of his choosing. Celeste could even turn invisible. But, most of the time, he preferred the light blue of the sky with twinkling stars. Celeste could move so fast that he could traverse any universe in the blink of an eye. He was so immaterial that he could go through anything, even the sun, without hurting himself. This does not mean that he could not feel. He could feel everything that was going through him, but in his own unique way. He spent most of his childhood speeding through space and time, universe after universe, galaxy after galaxy, star after star, planet after planet, looking for a soulmate who would look and feel like him. Sadly, he could not find anyone. So, Celeste tried to find something else that would cheer him up. Once, he found a star that was about to explode and wrapped it with his body, preventing it from exploding. Celeste liked to follow comets and push them, changing their course. He very much enjoyed watching Big Bangs from a distance. He always kept a fair distance because he felt mysteriously afraid. Celeste learned to be cautious after he had once been trapped inside a huge black hole, which nearly sucked him to his death. Luckily, a very small part of him was left outside, and he managed to stretch it far enough to hook himself onto a big twin star. After fooling around universes for ages, Celeste eventually lost his fun and felt the loneliness again. He suddenly had an idea. If he were to stretch himself so hard that he would break in half, maybe he would have a twin brother to play with. Celeste tried many times, but in vain. He was able to do anything but to split. From that day on, he ceased doing anything. He became just a big blob, floating in space. Around that time, on a planet called Earth, there lived a young boy called Jimmy. His mother had died when he was only a child, and he was now living with his dad. For a 10-year-old boy, he was a genius. He was gifted in school in general, but his main passion was astronomy. Jimmy's dad bought him a telescope, and the young boy spent most of his evenings gazing up at the stars. He knew all the constellations by heart, and many other things about the universe. Unfortunately, Jimmy's intelligence did not help him make any friends. In fact, most of the other children excluded him from their games, made fun of him, and a few even bullied him. Lately, Jimmy wasn't visited at home by anyone, nor was he invited to parties or playdates. One clear night, while Jimmy was lying in his bed, staring at the stars through the skylight, Celeste happened to pass close to Earth. Suddenly, a strong feeling took hold of them both. Jimmy and Celeste felt pulled towards the skylight. Celeste took the form of a sparkling blue ball and approached Jimmy until he was within reach. Jimmy reached out his fingers to touch Celeste, but received an electric shock. He screamed and jumped back behind his bed, hitting the lamp on his nightstand. Celeste got scared in turn and rapidly hid behind the full moon. Jimmy's father, hearing the noise upstairs, came to the door. "Jimmy, everything all right in there?" asked the father. "Yes, Dad. I tripped over the lamp," answered Jimmy. Jimmy did not want to involve his father in this new and fascinating adventure, not to mention that he was still scared. After a while, his curiosity overpowered his fear, and he came back to the window. Celeste was there in front of him, slowly changing colors from sky blue to shiny yellow and bright pink. Jimmy reached out to touch him again. The second touch was much gentler, Celeste somehow having learned that his strange powers were too much for Jimmy. In no time, Celeste started playing with Jimmy in his room, taking various forms, and lighting a book while Jimmy spoke words without much sense. Both were certainly very happy together. Jimmy fell asleep late in the night, and Celeste kept floating above the house. Next morning, Jimmy's dad had a hard time waking him up. He was not aware that Jimmy had barely slept a few hours. "Come on, Jimmy, you will be late for school," said his father. "Right away, Dad," replied Jimmy. But Jimmy was trying to remember the details of his strange encounter with Celeste. When he realized that it was not a dream, he jumped straight to the window. Celeste was there, an almost invisible ball, waiting for him. Breakfast was frugal for Jimmy that morning. He only wanted to go outside. He was in such a hurry that he almost forgot his backpack. "Jimmy, what's wrong with you this morning?" asked his dad. "Nothing, Dad. I'm just excited about this new star I found in the sky last night," said Jimmy, who did not want to lie, but also did not want to tell his dad about his encounter just yet. "You will lose yourself in a constellation one day," joked his dad, who knew about Jimmy's passion for astronomy. Once outside, Jimmy wanted to see if Celeste was following him. He started walking in random directions and watched Celeste fly close to him wherever he went. Both found this funny. Finally, Jimmy headed towards his school. "There's certainly something wrong with this kid," said the father, watching his son from behind the curtains. "One of these days, I should have a talk with the school principal," the father said to himself. Jimmy usually took large detours on his way to and from school in order to avoid an encounter with his bullies, 3 brothers who liked to pick on him every time they met. But that morning, it was already late, so he had to take the street on which the brothers lived. Sure thing, there they were, playing in front of their house. When they saw Jimmy, big unfriendly smiles appeared on all their faces, and an untold plan took shape in their eyes. They surrounded Jimmy and started pushing him and trying to search his backpack for food or money. "Leave me alone!" yelled Jimmy. The more Jimmy yelled, the louder were their laughs. Nothing could stop them now. Suddenly, something incredible happened. Celeste took his invisible form and, surrounding the 3 brothers, brought them to the top of the old oak tree in front of their house. He held them there, head down. Scared to death at the thought of falling down from such a height, the brothers yelled at the top of their 3 voices. At first, Jimmy was overjoyed that he got rid of his bullies. But after he regained his calm, he realized that only Celeste could have done such a thing. For a second, he forgot all the bad things that the 3 brothers had done to him in the past, and his good heart prevailed. "Celeste, bring them down, please," whispered Jimmy. He realized that it was the first time that he had called his new friend by name. Right away, Celeste brought the brothers down. They were still too scared to talk or walk. They just stared speechlessly at Jimmy with a mix of fear and respect. 5 minutes later, Jimmy entered his classroom with a completely changed attitude. At recess, the whole school was gossiping about Jimmy's new powers. All the children wanted to know about them, but they were too shy to ask him. Soon, Jimmy was surrounded by his classmates. They all wanted to invite him to play with them, hoping to find out more about his magic. Everyone wanted to become his friend. From that day on, Jimmy was never alone, at school or at home. Only, late in the evening, Jimmy had the most enjoyable time with his true best friend, Celeste.